How's it going, everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula, and welcome to today's Pokemon Go discussion video. So over the weekend, we had the Pokemon GO Fest 2022 finale event, and with that, the Summer of GO Fest events came to a close. Now there were a lot of discussions regarding what Niantic did right and wrong with Pokemon GO Fest this year, and I wanted to share my thoughts as well. I do think there were some very positive things Niantic did this year, but there were an absolute ton of things Niantic needs to improve upon for the next Pokemon GO Fest. I'm going to be talking about all of that in today's video, so let's roll the intro and get right into it. Okay, so without question, Pokemon GO Fest was very different this year compared to previous years. Niantic tried out a lot of different things, much of which did not go well with the Pokemon Go community. Typically, this event is seen very positively, but there were a lot of mixed opinions this particular year. I think it's important to recognize all of the positives that came out of the several Pokemon GO Fest events this year, while also giving constructive criticism so that Niantic can improve upon their mistakes. So with that said, I do have quite a lot of thoughts regarding how Niantic handled Pokemon GO Fest this year that I really hope leads to some positive changes. First and foremost, what did I think about the finale event? I personally think Niantic did a fairly decent job with this event, but I also think there were some negatives that very much outweighed the positives. They didn't do anything really groundbreaking, and it seems like a lot of the issues that players had from the previous GO Fest events this year were still issues during this particular event. I think the first issue we need to discuss were the spawns. To put it bluntly, they were kind of lackluster, especially in comparison to previous GO Fests from past years. Other than Axew and a few other Pokemon, there weren't too many exciting spawns that got players to grind it out. The only time I felt a buzz within my local community during the finale event was during the Buzzwole Habitat hours, mainly because it had plenty of rare Pokemon and shinies within the pool of spawns. During the other hours, even though new shinies were featured, it just didn't seem like anyone cared. This is something I would suggest to Niantic. What really drives players to care about these events are going to be the spawns. Sprinkling in a minuscule number of meta or rare Pokemon into a wide array of useless and common spawns is going to be detrimental for these sort of events. Players are just simply not going to care if the spawns are not that exciting. This is not an issue that GO Fest had in previous years. Sure, there were times when players complained about the spawns not being as exciting, but I don't think it was ever as bad as it was with the events this year. We should also address the elephant in the room, and that is the GO Fest shiny rate. This has been an intensely polarizing topic, but I do think that there is a massive disconnect between Niantic and their players. What's really odd to me is that Niantic seems to think that there are too many opportunities for shinies currently within Pokemon Go, and that their rarity is not being retained. Aside from community days and generally boosted shiny rates, there really aren't that many Pokemon that have their shinies in abundance within the Pokemon Go player base. Throughout the past GO Fests before this year, it really felt like Niantic had the Goldilocks zone locked down when it came to the shiny rates. Shinies were common enough where players would maintain that sense of excitement and anticipation throughout the event, but they were rare enough where it didn't feel like a glorified community day. Something that was common in previous years that did not happen this year was the post-GO Fest buzz that you would feel by going through all the shinies you caught during the event. The shiny rate was tuned so low this year where it seemed like there was way more post-GO Fest disappointment. Honestly, I can understand exactly what Niantic was aiming to do. They lowered the shiny rate significantly, but offset that lower rate by having more events. I think this was the incorrect approach. I would much prefer having less events throughout the year, but pumping them with a lot more excitement. This was what made Pokemon GO Fest such a landmark event in previous years. You had 1 or 2 days out of the whole year to look forward to, knowing that it was going to be full of shinies and rares. But stretching out those shinies and rares over multiple events with a lot of filler is only going to make the experience as a whole feel very bland. Now, the final issue that I had with the finale event, and this year's Pokemon GO Fest as a whole, was the lack of a good hook. As much as I liked the Ultra Beasts, I really didn't think they worked as the primary theme for this year's GO Fest. It was certainly an interesting and unique approach having this meta-narrative regarding the arrival of the Ultra Beasts, but I just felt like it was overall too cumbersome of a concept for the average player. To get the full Pokémon GO Fest experience this year, you needed to dedicate a full weekend for the global event, you then needed to dedicate another day for the finale event, then you needed to travel and plan to attend one of the 3 weekend-long events. It just seemed like there was too much for the average player this year. If Niantic wants us to travel for an in-person experience, having 3 different GO Fests in 3 different cities is fine, but I would prefer the way it was handled in 2019. None of the cities had any location exclusives, and you wouldn't really be missing out if you didn't attend all 3 events. Having the global event and the finale event on top of that just felt way too much. I really think Niantic needs to choose one or the other. Have a global event that everyone can experience, or have multiple in-person events that are not exclusive to each other. This is obviously a hard choice to make considering that both formats were extremely popular, but just mashing both formats together like what they tried this year just didn't work. I'm wondering if my opinion on this would have changed if I had attended one of the in-person events, but since the selling point of those events were just stuff that was obtainable from the finale event, I really had a hard time trying to justify why Niantic had those events in the first place. I think what would be really effective as a hook or a theme is to go simpler. One of the appealing aspects of previous GO Fests was that they didn't have some grand meta-narrative with a multi-part story, but just a simple theme around the mythical Pokemon assigned to that year. For example, Pokémon GO Fest 2021 was a music-themed event around Meloetta, and 2020 was a battle-themed event around Victini. I really feel like Niantic pushed way too many themes and stories this year because they stretched it out across multiple events, that it all ended up becoming a convoluted mess. I think Niantic had a lot of potential for a phenomenal GO Fest experience this year, and I do want to applaud them for trying something different. I just don't think a lot of those experiments ended up panning out positively for the Pokemon Go player base, and they should just stick to what worked in the past. Ultimately, I still want to give credit where credit is due, because I do think Niantic did do some things really well this year. The way Niantic introduced the Ultra Beasts was actually really interesting, and I did like the idea of having special event-specific balls that you could use to catch them. The introduction of the Beast Ball with its increased catch rate for Ultra Beasts was something that I don't think a single player complained about. Adding small quality of life things like this for GO Fest is something I would like to see Niantic do more in the future. And even though I complained about the overall narrative being convoluted and messy, I still thought the story they were trying to tell was pretty interesting at the end of the day. Maybe if they condensed it over 2 days rather than a whole season, it would have been much more effective. But in any case, yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Please let me know down below what you thought about Pokemon GO Fest this year. I'm sure there's going to be a wide variety of different opinions, so share yours down below and let's have a great discussion. And if you ended up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then be sure to check out the links in the description below. For all of my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-games friends list, so if you want to interact with me in some way, like with remote raids, then do consider becoming a patron on my Patreon. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.